Hello, hello. Maybe we can give it another 30 seconds or so for folks to show up. Does anyone have any story or thoughts or anything beautiful they want to add into the space right now before we get going?
I could share something. I woke up this morning, like about an hour ago, and the first thing that I experienced was this smell, and I was like, because it's very, very hot here, extreme weather, extreme fire, and all of that, and so my windows were open, and this smell, I was like, of course, immediately the thought of smoke came into my mind, but I was like, no, this is not smoke. What is this? And then I was just waking up, so my thoughts were far, far away, and I wasn't experiencing much in the physical except for the scent. And all of a sudden my ears heard rain. And I was like, oh my God, it's raining. And so it was so beautiful because it hasn't rained here for all summer, maybe a couple of times for a couple minutes. And this morning it's cool and it's raining and it's clear. And the smell is just amazing of the rain.
Oh, thank you for that.
Sure.
I love the smell of rain. Does anyone feel like doing about a 3-minute drop-in session for us? So either a poem or a musical instrument or a meditation or some art that you want to share and explain. Wait until somebody's got something.
I can share an art piece.
Take it away.
It's sitting over here. It's a plant and then something else. A leaf of a plant. I call it plant-human interface. So I don't know what to say about it, except that I created it. I was in a funny mind space, like, and it was kind of inspired from mycelium, but it's also something else about really communicating with the plants and extending their how do you say, maybe moving information between plants and humans, maybe something like that. Yeah, the which is happening all the time because we're herbivores, but there's also other types of information that we can change, we can move and channel and synergize with them. And it kind of has like a electrical element in it. It also has like a mycelium element in it, and it has like a boundary between plant and human matter, like human flesh and plant matter in a sense. And yeah, I'm not sure what else to say about it. I actually imagined it making an animation with it, with something like this, but I don't have the skills. Maybe I can find an artist to help me with that.
That's not coincidentally, that's a very powerful image and picture that I think you're able to bring up for us there, especially that of mycelium. Mycelium is the inter-kingdom translators. They help different kingdoms and species communicate with drought. And I think it's part of the role of the infrastructure we're building now is different communication medium, so we can start communicating in a different way with the different kingdoms of life that we have on our planet. So part of what we're going to be exploring next is like, how do we measure what regeneration is? Like, how do we have that dialogue with planet Earth, with this being that's called Gaia and called them a million different names? But how do we have communication with that being to best understand how we can serve her and live in right relationship with her? And we have this weird medium that we're thinking of called like, decentralized technology and blockchain, where we can write, what regeneration is into it and build it into the protocols. But I think we need to have that dialogue to best understand what is regeneration and how we can serve her in order to write that into our new communication medium, if that makes sense. So I think that's what, the role we're trying to build, play here is actually building that new, mycelial network for this new civilization. It sounds pretty audacious and ridiculous, but why not? Okay, so let me bring up the agenda for today. If you have anything to add to the agenda items that you'd like to see done today, just put it in the chat right now. And drop in and ground, consent proposals. Does anyone have any proposals that they want to bring to the group that have already gone through the process? I would doubt it, but maybe a proposal's ready to actually be brought to the group to say, we've gone through all the process, this is our proposal, do we all agree to it? So anyway, does anyone have any consent proposals that they want to bring? All right. Next up is explorer groups and sharing. Does anyone have anything to share for any explorer group? Some breakthrough you had during this week, or any updates that you might want to share with the group? Anna, I actually know you have something for the comms proposal. You wanted a couple minutes for that. Do you want to do that now?
Sure. It was just a quick announcement to say that, I've been going over that comms proposal doc, and we're gonna reserve a big chunk of tomorrow's storytelling space session for this, to go over that with all of you. So if anyone is interested in coming to an agreement into all of our, wait, let me copy paste that into the chat again, that doc, because I don't know if everyone has it. If anyone is interested in coming to agreements towards our communication patterns for the Renaissance Explorers, and why not for the overall Seeds community, then come to the storytelling space tomorrow, and that's where we're gonna do for most of it. That's it. Thank you.
Ooh, good stuff. Thanks, Anna. And again, not uncoincidentally, comms is, how we play that mycelial network. So one way of thinking about comms as we enter into this is part of it is what not to do. So, don't harass people, and some rules that we can say that, like, hey, if you come into our space and you're breaking these rules, then this is grounds for us to, put you on a 2-week break where you can't come into the Discord space, or, ban you from the group if you're spamming, being fraudulent, etc. So there's that side of it, but then there's the other side, which I feel like a lot of communication agreements forget about, which is the positive side, which is, here are some best practices in order to communicate more effectively and more clearly. So I think that's something, we talked about this initially in this group, but I want to bring it back up as we move to actually, finding our foundations here for how we want to communicate. Is what are some processes that if we followed them, our communication flow would be much quicker, much clearer, much more joyful. I don't want to bias it too much, so I won't. I'll leave it very open, but there's some hands up. So let me call on them. For some reason, I'm not seeing hands. So if you know your hand's up, just unmute yourself and go.
That was me. Let me turn my camera on. Well, it's not about the comms though. It's going to be another a separate kind of check-up or check-in or just kind of presencing what's happening with the Milestone 3. If that's helpful.
Oh yeah, take it away.
Cool. Yep. So I just want to say we had a round table last Friday, and that was really a chance for about 40 to 50 people plus to come together and really share their perspective on what was happening with Milestone 3. But also kind of to look at a way forward that allowed for what Reiki's kind of put forward. Reiki put forth a proposal. That proposal was a multi-step plan for how any organization that was willing to contribute a certain degree of contribution or commitment to contributing to the ecosystem, that they could come about and claim a split of Milestone 3's kind of seed distribution. I don't want to go too much into detail, but I want to say that they're from that meeting, which is shared in the Seeds Commons channel on the Seeds Discord. There's been like a breakdown into like a working group, but also there's a space for Renaissance explorers, both to come and kind of either learn about the process of milestones and contributions, but also to be able to kind of contribute actively to shaping the future of the ecosystem by bringing your voice and your skills into into this kind of into this really kind of momentous process that we're in. And so there's still like some details and proposals that are kind of about it, but I want to just presence that there's been a big shift in where we were going. There's been a lot of updates to how I think the model of thinking about Milestone, but also the bodies and the organizations and how they're contributing to the future of Seeds as a movement growing, but also how individuals are having the capacity to show up and kind of and shape the direction of these organizations and what they are contributing, I guess, going forward. So I just wanted to kind of presence that there's a lot of changes that are happening in that way, but also a lot of really, I think it feels very progressive and it feels very collaborative and it feels very exploratory. And so this is kind of an update on that front, and also the space for RE to find its way in navigating or proposing how it wants to be and what it wants to contribute for the future is very much on the table too. So there's possibly a working group or some way for people to contribute to that if they're interested in that. Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah. Do you have any clear action items for that, or you were just wanting to presence it and bring it up?
Clear action items. That's a good one, Ricky. maybe
looking for something in particular.
No, I don't know. I guess if people want to take action, there's a working group meeting on Thursday, kind of collective working group. And there's also, I would say, just if you read through both on our discourse forum as well as on that kind of comms channel, there's a lot of like deep information about possibilities and tokenomics and a lot of things that the game guy put in action. And so that would be 2 action items people could take in order to get involved, but also just to have a deep learning experience about what we're going through right now. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, super relevant and alive. So Something really cool that Seeds is doing right now is splitting up the Milestone awards. So instead of it all going to HIFA, a better way of framing it, when someone comes in and buys seeds from joinseeds.earth, right now, if they spend $100, HIFA gets all $100 of that. So HIFA is getting all the revenue of people coming in and buying seeds, right? What we're doing with this milestone splitting up is we're letting the citizens say, all right, no, HIFA is going to get 20% of the revenue, but Samara is going to get 20%, and Renaissance Explorers could get 20% or whatever. So now any organization can form within Seeds and start serving the public good. And then the citizens can be like, yep, we really appreciate what that organization's doing. Let's give them a share of this revenue stream. And then as more folks come in and buy seeds from this, now it's a seed sale instead of a HIFA sale, then that funds is split between all the different organizations. And this is what gives us our working capital to fund our roles and do stuff for the ecosystem. So there's essentially a new way of doing like public goods funding. So what does that mean for Renaissance Explorers? It means, we can start figuring out a whole bunch of different ways to serve seeds in order to earn a larger percentage of that revenue stream, to get citizens to really feel like we're adding a lot of value, serving the ecosystem and helping it grow. And then our role after that is then to collaborate with all the rest of the organizations and seeds in order to grow the revenue stream so that we all can benefit and continue to thrive and do beautiful things. So that's an exploration that's happening right now, is how can Renaissance Explorers evolve to be a sustainable organization that's providing the public good of education and wisdom and knowledge and exploration, research, design, and all that stuff we're doing here. That's all a public service, and we can get funded through Seeds for doing that. And we're opening it up now. So we just passed our HIFA quest as well. So we have some initial seed capital to get going. So the idea is we want to use that seed capital to get us to a point where we're adding a lot of value to seeds and we're getting a pretty significant share of that milestone award so that we can have that as our revenue stream going forward. And then we can figure out some other ways that we could add value, maybe putting on courses or something. So this is how Renaissance Explorers could evolve to be a sustainable organization, continue to fund itself going forward. Awesome, thanks for bringing that up, Justin. Arena, you had RE contribution to the milestone.
Yeah, I guess I was synchronizing with Justin on the on the topic, and kind of has been covered. The only thing I will need to I'm not clear about if there is conversation happening or a specific working group in RE that is focusing on the milestone in terms of how RE is contributing or to the process or for them in general. I think that will be important to have. And if there is such an initiative, I would be happy to support or to initiate one if there is none.
Yeah, a few hours ago, we have an RE core call. So that's where that's currently taking place. So RE core, Renaissance Explorers core is the group of people who are holding roles in order within Renaissance Explorers. So that would be doing something like presenting RE to the rest of the seed citizens and actually taking the threads. So for example, we had a comms agreement. At the very beginning of Renaissance Explorers, it was kind of just open. We said, hey, there's this comms agreement, let's make it and let's bring it to the table and actually carry it forward. And the comms agreement kind of didn't actually fall into anyone's lap, because if you think everyone's gonna have it, nobody has it, right? So what we needed is someone to say, nope, that's my agreement and I'm taking it forward, like Anna's done. The people who are doing that and like very consciously going through the difficult effort of follow through, those people can have roles within Renaissance Explorers. And then we're being compensated for making sure that we're actually taking something from the ideation stage, working through with the rest of the Renaissance Explorers, bringing it to a proposal and making sure it doesn't get, forgotten or dropped. So that's kind of what it means to have a role in Renaissance Explorers and a bunch of different other ways, but I think that was relevant. Anyway, back to you, Arena. I kind of gathered it.
Yeah, thank you. It was relevant, but somehow it doesn't answer my question, but I see a clarification from Anna in the chat, and maybe if she wants to bring that.
Yes, agreed with what Reiki said about having roles, but since you were, and And to answer your question, as far as I understand, there is no initiative in Renaissance Explorers to lead that milestone conversation from the RE perspective. So I would be more than happy for you to take on that role, if we want to call it like that. Or to initiate that working group, or however you want to call it, Irina.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. My kind of intention here is to support the Renaissance Explorers so that there are people coming together and be represented here and actually representing the Renaissance Explorers. I feel that I'm doing that a lot for Samara, so it will be great to have people here doing the same, and I'm happy to support with that. So if there are any other interested in joining, please do so. That will be really welcome.
Awesome. And John asked if there's documentation of roles so far. We were literally just talking about that in the call before this one, so the RE core one. So yeah, we're putting that together, and once we have it done, maybe Anna, you want to share that in the RE general chat and Discord once we have the roles document? Cool. Any other agenda items or things that people want to cover?
Yeah, actually, I would just like to bring some attention to the exploration group, to the community building score that I put up, and there was not much engagement there. So maybe just to say people, there's something there, and it's I think it's quite cool because it enables us to also bring in new value flows and find new ways how to spread, for example, the invitation rewards in a more representative way of how people engage with newcomers and so on. So yeah, I can write the whole proposal myself, but that is kind of besides the point. I would like to have some people join in and just pitch in ideas. I will send the link there, yes. Thank you.
Max, I will join you in that now that I'm back. I had to take a little break the last couple of weeks, but I did reply in there, and I'll be engaged in that as we go forward.
Ooh, anything else? Thanks, Max. All right, then. We are gonna dive right in. Also, side announcement, there's a really cool, I'll put a link to it in the chat right after we close here, but there's a conference on regenerative economics right now that I definitely think it's worth going back and rewatching. Saw Kate Raworth, she shared something about it. So I think it's probably really relevant, at least it sounds relevant. And the session that I really wanted to attend is happening right now. But anyway, we can catch the recording of it and I'll share the link. So what I thought we could do was continue to go through section 1 of the guide. Does that feel like a good thing for us to continue to do today, or does someone have an idea for something else that we can discuss that's more relevant? Nothing? Cool. Something that was alive fairly recently was they made a big case about the idea of reversing inequality and how important that was. And I might end up making a video specifically on this one, but this was actually something that I wanted to have a breakout group today on, is the topic of reversing inequality. And what does that actually mean to do that in a way that's sustainable and healthy for the seeds ecosystem? Because on one hand, we reverse inequality by giving a bunch of value out to a lot of people who don't have very much value, right? But on the other hand, there's these weird economic principles that I think if we don't follow them, we might be in trouble. And maybe that's not the case. One of those economic principles is that, we need to meet demand with supply. So we can't just continually give out abundance without it being matched with an equal energy flow on the other side that's going to flow through that in order for it to be sustainable. So if we give out a bunch of abundance, but then, you know, all those folks just want to sell out, then we have this big sell pressure not being matched by buy pressure, and the value of the token kind of collapses. So there's weird kind of seemingly competing ideas at play, which is how can we create abundance without crashing? What does that actually look like? I have a whole lot of interesting ideas on it, but I'd actually love to hear all of yours, more important. So this was one idea that I had for a breakout. I want to get a sense of the group right now. If we want to break out and talk about this in groups right now and come into a harvest before continuing through the guide, or if we feel like we just want to dive into the guide more and figure out something else to break out on. So if you want to talk about, you know, reversing inequality, what that means, and maybe how we can do it the most beautifully effective way, go ahead and give up a heart. If you want to just keep going through the guide and find something else, give a thumbs up. And you can use little emoji things because it's a lot easier for me to see. All right, the general feeling is I see a lot of hearts. So we're going to do the breakout group. So I do want to frame it just a little bit more to say that again. I feel there's this tension within seeds, and I see it everywhere. And it was actually, someone shared with me some Reddit link to someone, and there's this whole forum talking about how seeds is a Ponzi scheme and people are just hating on it. And there's things like, it's too complex and complicated, so there's no way they could have solved anything. And anyway, but one of the big critiques, and they weren't wrong in this, was they were looking at it and saying, it's just one of those do-good currencies that are just taking a bunch of tokens and giving it out to a bunch of projects. It's like, don't they realize a basic economic principle that if you just give a whole bunch of money away, it's not going to be worth anything? Blah, 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 going off on that. And they make a good point. So if people are showing up and looking at it like that, and I've had a couple of friends comment the same thing, where they've looked in the passport, saw a proposal that was up and being like, this is passing. How is this passing? This is what's being funded. Like, I don't trust this system anymore. And it was very jarring to hear that. It was like, oh, interesting. So I share that all to say that there is some perspectives out there that hold this idea that if we just give out a bunch of wealth, then it's not going to look like a safe option. It's going to look, you know, unstable or unpractical, and it's not going to build a lot of trust. So there's this idea that we need to kind of balance that. And on the receiving end, if you get a gift, and I know it's kind of weird, but some humans think this way, and maybe I do too, but it's this idea of something's given to you for free, we value it less. So if you get a gift of, 100,000 seeds and it's just free and you didn't do anything for it, then it's like, well, these things mean nothing to me. Or if you had to do something to get something, then it means a little bit more, like you had to earn it. And again, these are just different perspectives, and they're not necessarily true or false. It's just ideas. So keep all of that in mind as we start diving into, what does it mean to be able to reverse inequality? And we need to do that because our current economic systems are incredibly unequal. And if they ever get this far, I'm going to keep talking if I don't shut up. So we're going to do breakout groups. There's 20 of us. There's going to be 3 people on each one of them. So let's get ready to do that. Okay, so there's 7 groups. See you all on the other side. We're going to give about 10 minutes in the groups, and I'll give you a warning when there's just a minute or so left. And as always, when I enter your room, don't say anything to me. I'm just recording. Sorry for making that annoying noise, but it's just what it does.
Chunk of time where I'm the only woman. So it's very nice.
Cool. Has any one of you taken part in the discussion about reversing inequality on the Discord and can sum up the main points? Or have you not been part of it? Then I would sum up what I have heard, but I'm not deeply involved in that discussion.
Okay.
I'm not deeply, I'm trying to be more involved little by little. It's just I am involved in a lot of things right now. So
maybe Rachel, you start and I then can add what I know so that we have a common base to speak about.
Yeah. So what what subject? Sorry.
So we want to discuss the reversing inequality, and what I can also start. What I heard is that some people are worrying that not everyone will be able to afford seats and to be part of seats. What I also have heard is that, but that's already my interpretation, that a lot of people think that they need to change fiat currency, so US dollar or Swiss franc or whatever, against seats. And in my view, what gets forgotten is that you can also earn seats or gift seats. So for me, the inequality discussion only partly makes sense.
Those rewards, they tend to be big, so bigger. So my point here is how to detach from this mentality on like, if we think fiat, those people are already like in a position on getting a lower paychecks or whatever when you put it to dollars, euros, and it's enough for them to live there, but it's still in some level it's to keep the same paradigm on keeping the money concentrated in some parts of the world. So that's something I've been sitting upon. I don't have an answer on how to do different. I would like to know your reflections, Justin, if you see this happening also, or if you have a different view.
Yeah, I guess what came up as I was listening was like, it felt like the relationship we have to time in the same way. Like when people want to coordinate time, it's always like UTC or CET, but it's almost like an assumption that is, I mean, it's called, like universals, but it's not really universal. There's a need to adapt or adjust or kind of meet them in the time. And I think about how time and money are deeply related. How there's a really, that same like kind of anchored sense that this is the center, or this is the way that things are, this is the more valuable way, is kind of I don't know, I can feel, I just kind of, it feels like a skewing or like a very, very similar maybe cognitive or mindsets that would have an impact on what I hear you talking about around the nature of the size of investment, but also the way people relate to fiat versus crypto, or the quantity of fiat or quantity of currency invested in projects based on continental or kind of location or sense of location. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Can I, the last part, I mean, I'll add is like, I think that maybe there's like a
enormous, an enormous refugee camp that could be benefited by the circulation of seeds. And the proposal is to educate people there and to try to support them, because there is no economy there, no economy whatsoever, no governmental economy, and they don't have the resources. So how can we support as a seed community to make an economy, give life to the economy there? And that could be one criteria. How can we create different criteria that support that kind of thing, that the regenerative economy reaches where it really needs to reach, and support communities that are not included in economy. So I was thinking more along those lines. And with that, I stop talking and want to hear your thoughts.
Making things very explicit. So like that recommendation. And yeah, I think the Genie could be something really valuable to put on some sort of dashboard that is really showing the health of the economic system. And I know some people have commented on the potential for, I guess, increasing inequality through the 30% planting bonus that I think is like a one-time thing for, I guess it's coming up soon, for early adopters. And I would be curious to hear more about the original intention behind that. And then secondly, I think there's generally this kind of argument made that wealth has nothing, in the seed system, wealth has nothing to do with your voting power. But I also understand that the more you're planting, the more that's boosting your contribution score. And I need to look at exactly how that's configured. But that seems like a concern here as well.
I completely agree that we need to look at any potential manipulation points, where somebody can gain the equivalence of wealth and power. So the power to influence what how the system works, in normal life is influenced by how much wealth you have, and so then you can influence the system in the direction of you accumulating more wealth, and that's what builds over time the inequality. That's what Thomas Piketty's work has shown us.
Right.
And we knew it in capitalist systems, but he shows it happens over and over again in social systems. So we need to make explicitly, again, make an explicit decoupling of voice and wealth.
And one thing I'm aware of, I guess we got 60 more. Last thing is we think of like voting power as the contribution score, but realistically, like the way politics works in seeds right now is like the more connected you are, the more nimbly and better able to navigate Discord and Zoom you are, the more voice you have. And I guess I don't know what structures there are to make that explicit or limit that, or if we would ever even want to go down that route. But I think it's important for us to acknowledge that contribution score is probably like the smallest component of someone's voice right now in this system.
Right. When by the time the proposals are written and formed and put before you to vote on, most of the dynamic.
Oh man, that was such juicy stuff. I mean, if all we did was just got together and had breakouts, and man, anyway. So put your hands up if you're the one designated to share your harvest, and then just go in order. So Rachel, start us off.
So I guess we were talking about, we talked about a lot, so I'm just going to try and remember everything we talked about. We talked about making seeds available for everyone, and even people who might not afford it, might not be able to afford it. And we we talked about the different concepts of like how some people are worried about them not being able to afford it, but then we're also wanting to have the seeds be a currency that that everything turns, like it's a solid, unfluctuating things that we can count on. And I don't know if I'm explaining that quite right, but we were talking about how with seeds we have the opportunity to do gifting and to help each other out, and so anyone who can't afford it would still have the opportunity to be able to afford it, because if they're connected with people, then it would be easier. And And then I can't remember what else. Yeah, if anybody from my group has more to share on that.
I could help you. Here, I had the question of, so the level that Rachel is explaining, if, and I know so little, so this may be already existing, but anyway, my question is, it seems to me that we need to reach out and project out to bring in like independent companies, companies that are existing, companies that are doing really well, that are in alignment, you know, like their product. Like for instance, I'm personally thinking about this particular eco cosmetic company. And because if we start to do that and it isn't existing yet, and we can onboard and bring these in, then that builds the foundation for us not to have the setup that is it currently existing with not having funding. So that's the other piece that was brought up, so that that foundation would support the individuals who were coming in. And so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Helping me out.
Ooh. Yeah, I think that's a huge part of this is, you know, balancing the inflows with outflows. So the more philanthropic organization, there's a ton of money that's moving into ESG investment funds. That if we could start rediverting that money where they can meet their goal, which might be to reduce poverty or reduce hunger or reforestation, there's all these beautiful goals, but some of these foundations still want to make money. So that's what's so great about seeds, is like the value flow that's coming in could be a purchase of an asset that could appreciate, which is seeds. It's not necessarily a donation, but how it flows through the ecosystem could be the exact same as a donation. They wanted to donate money to planting trees, where we can actually have that money flow through, where someone can get paid seeds for planting trees and then sell those seeds back for the currency that's coming in. So I think that's really beautiful to be able to connect those funding flows. And that's one way I think that seeds is going to be able to scale and decentralize abundance a little bit better. John.
Yeah, me and Tyler were in the same group as just the two of us. It was really great. So I have 4 things to report, and Tyler, if you remember anything else. First is that we could make some kind of explicit value measurement of the inequality within the seed system, like the Gini index is used in the world. And that when private accumulation, when and if private accumulation ever were to accumulate in an dramatically unequal manner, it would trigger some way of taxing private wealth and put it back into the collective wealth to be redistributed by vote and voice of the collective. You know, so that's one way to stop there from becoming obscene misalignments, you know, billionaires in space kind of stuff. The second thing is that we need to look everywhere that we can in the game guide and decouple voice from wealth, so that, you know, there's no way that the system can be manipulated where you can accumulate something because of your wealth that gives you more voice, that then you're able to game the system to give you more wealth. That, you know, that feedback loop is what produces extreme inequality in every society. That Thomas Piketty measured, and there's a certain point where it's a breaking point and society falls apart. Third thing is that we agree with the previous group that there really should be no barrier to entry. You shouldn't need to accumulate a certain amount of wealth outside of seeds in order to be able to come into seeds. If you're willing to show up and contribute and produce value within the system, that ought to be enough to get you in. And then the fourth is that even within the way that we're working now, there's a certain level of privilege that allows you more influence and voice because we have access to technology. Those of us who've shown up here have had access to technology and learning and can do, Discord and, the complicated things that takes to look up things on a blockchain and that kind of stuff. And most of the world has not. So just by virtue of our privileged position in the world, we already have more influence. And we didn't have an answer for that, but Tyler, anything to add?
No, I think that's great. Just on that last point, it's just the only thing that I can advocate for now at this point, it's not really a solution, is just let's try to be explicit that, contribution score voice is one form of voice. And there's all these unmeasurable voices and influences that we all each have that we have no way of making explicit right now. But to pretend that that contribution score is all of the voice is very misleading.
Wow. A whole lot of epic stuff. I'm actually going to run with it this way where I can make some responses to all of this. And this is basically what I was going to go over in the guide. So awesome. Real quick, just what you were talking about, Tyler. I think it's the difference between sense making and decision making, and we're really going to break that down in the governance section, where your voice in Discord is how much you have in the effort of sense making. But decision making still is always going to come down to some type of vote, which is your contribution score. That's just objectively how it is, and then people can have their probably more voice there if you're getting delegated to. So that's how I think voice is going to start accumulating with the actual decision-making side, is with who's delegating to whom. And that's actually something we're going to be trying to propose here as Renaissance Explorers, is we're saying, hey, we're dedicating our time here. We're really taking the effort to understand this system where maybe you don't necessarily have that time. So maybe you might want to delegate your voice to me because I'm taking the time to really understand those decisions. So then, the sacred politician isn't someone who's spending all their time politicking and figuring out how to get elected. They're spending all their time really understanding the nuances of decisions and trying to make really informed decisions, And I think there's a space for that going forward. So that's the difference between like sense making to decision making. I think we need to be aware of, and I think that we have to. There's a lot of ways we can improve our sense making. I think that's very clear. So I think that's a really live discussion, and maybe it could even be a working group within Seeds. Is how can we improve sense making? Which how can we fix up Discord so when people arrive there, it doesn't feel like you're arriving to like 7 different circuses at the same time. But if it's a really beautiful way that brings you through all the information you're being presented, I think that would be nice. So a couple other things. I was going to get into percentile distributions today, so we're actually going to share the screen real quick. We're going to keep getting to the rest of the group, so hold all of your thoughts, but we're just going to kind of carry through the rest of the call this way, so bear with me. So that is the point of percentile ratings and why we do the contribution score from 0 to 99, and it's not an absolute number, because this is how we can reverse inequality. So someone was saying, actually, John, you're just sharing beautifully, if money begets more money, that's going to concentrate wealth. So if And this is how all of the proof of stake systems and blockchain work right now, which if I have more money, I have more stake, which means I get that. If I have 40% of the stake, then I get 40% of the reward and I have 40% of the voice, right? And then if I have 40%, that's going to keep compounding. I'm going to have more and more. And I'm going to use my outsized voice in order to give me, make decisions to give me even more money, et cetera, et cetera. It's this kind of how capitalism works, and it's what we're seeing being repeated. So the idea of percentile ratings is, okay, if I have 40% of all seeds that are planted, I'm in the 99th percentile. And I'm going to be right next to the second person who might only have 2% of the supply, and which is right next to the third person who maybe has a fraction of a percent. So it gets rid of this concept of being able to hoard and get never-ending benefits from it. Once you get to the 99th percentile, it stops. So what we've done is, instead of having infinite degrees of inequality, that's with wealth and voice, what we've done is we've broken it down into 100 degrees. So I know we were sharing this a little bit last time, but that is why it's there. Also with hoarding, this is another kind of a meta way we can go about designing this, is thinking between voluntary incentives versus punishments. So I know in our current systems, it's always about punishments. If we want to get an outcome, we'll say, well, don't do that or we're going to punish you, or do this or else we're going to punish you. And we're trying to like punish people into getting where we want them to go. So we have a lot of things like fees and stuff like that. And I keep hearing that kind of come up in seeds where it's like, ooh, well, let's make a wealth tax. So if you're hoarding this much money, we're just going to take it from you. It's like, then why would someone want to bring their wealth into the system if it's just going to get taken away from them? Which is kind of an anti-behavior that we're not wanting to have. So instead, it's about how do we create the incentives that are going to align to the outcomes that we want, so that it's optimal just for people to do the behaviors that we're wanting to actually have done. So if we don't want there to be hoarding, then we want to make this a suboptimal currency to hoard. One, seeds is transparent, which you can easily find who's holding a bunch of wealth. So if you're trying to hide billions of dollars and you're a drug runner, you don't want to use seeds. There's better decentralized currencies for that are private and stuff. So there's already other currencies in the market. Seeds doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's not going to be the currency that people are going to be holding onto to hide a bunch of drug money or ill-gotten gains or hoard a bunch of wealth that way. So already that's kind of winning. Second, it's not, post go live when it's meant to be stable, it's not going to be appreciating like some of the more scarce currencies are. So again, it's if all you want is number go up, holding on to seeds might not be the best thing. Like you might rather hold on to Bitcoin or something if it's still around. So the idea is we just don't have the incentives that reward hoarding. While our current capitalistic systems, they do. The more money I have, the more interest I can get on my money. It's kind of backwards. It's saying like, oh, the more wealth you have, the more wealth we're going to give you. And the more wealth you have, the more loans you can take out at a lower interest rate. It's like all of our incentives are backwards. It's to say that the more wealth you're hoarding, the more wealth we're going to give you. So we needed to reverse that in seeds, but we needed to do it while we're just still encouraging people to come. So that was the idea of percentile ratings, is there's still a benefit in contributing more to the system, but that benefit wanes over time and you max out at 99 and you can't go further than that, right? So that's kind of the idea behind some of those designs. Last piece about, the inequality bit is we always want it so that people are going to be able to show up, contribute in non-monetary ways and be able to earn citizenship. So right now it's fairly easy. It's only 200 seeds and every campaign is giving more than that. So you can just come in and do one campaign and you've earned enough seeds for you and a couple friends really to get citizenship. So I think it's really easy. I don't know if necessarily you want it to be easy to become a citizen, because you could still come into seeds and get all the benefits. Citizenship means like you're invested in the system, you're making decisions, like this is part of you. And we don't want that to necessarily just be easy, because then people aren't going to value it again. But also, like, why is that something that should be easy? This is, stepping into a place of co-governing in a new civilization. Do we want this to be something that just anyone can get without having to put in any effort? Or do we want there to be effort? But do we want that effort to be egalitarian? So we're not saying, well, you have to come from an Ivy League school in order to understand the language here. We say there's some very basic things that you can contribute and everyone can contribute this way. So we already have gratitude that's going to keep running. Some people are going to be able to show up, just earn some gratitude that's going to translate into seeds, and they can use that to get their citizenship. But what we're saying is with the planted seeds to get citizenship is you're invested in this system. And we want everyone to have skin in the game, to benefit from its success. Having something like 200 seed stake to do that, I think makes a lot of sense. So yes, I wanted to, and I think it would be great if we maintain this so that everyone can always earn their way into seeds, and to do it fairly simply, but still with a little bit of effort and commitment. And these are just, of course, my opinions and some of the thoughts that I put into when creating this. All right, so there's a couple more topics I'll cover on, but I'll do that after we get to some more of the circles. So whose hand is next? According to my screen, it looks like Telma.
Yes. So what we discussed in our group was how did we take your framing about going to that, and I was sharing that was more into what I understood from what you were sharing is how to avoid the trap. And now listening to you and listening to John, it makes sense. How can we avoid that trap of like the current system where federal banks, when they issue new money and they throw into the market, that new money will only benefit the ones who already have it, and they get it at a very cheap price. And although you're putting more resource, more financial resource into the system, it will never get to the place where it really needs to get. The ones who don't have it and need it, they are never benefited from that. And how can we avoid that trap within seed system? And I was sharing about one campaign proposal that is open now in this circle that I Okay. Something happened. Are you listening to me? Yeah. Am I still online?
My internet just dropped out. Did you guys all still catch what Telma was saying? Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I was saying, how can we really support those kinds of campaigns where we are really sure that seeds are going to the ones who really need it, that are totally out of the economic system. They don't have any economy whatsoever there in the refugee settlement. And how can seeds go there and support this kind of community? How can we design the system that we really ensure that we are supporting this regenerative economy?
I would 100,000% yes. That would be so beautiful to see that. If we see it in some elements of, I don't necessarily know if we can call it progress, but civilization advancement, where, for example, Africa leapfrogged America in telecommunications. And they were able to build infrastructure that was way better, way cheaper, in a fraction of the time, and it was just way better in every way. I think we could do that with the same kind of concept as we can go to the refugee camps who don't necessarily have a current economic system that they have to fight. There isn't one. So they can almost leapfrog the rest of the economic systems that need to transition because they don't have to go through all that extra noise and tension and BS of having to fight an existing system. They can just step right into a new one and almost more fully embody it and embrace it and come, that'd be so beautiful to see that flip where some of the most impoverished places in the world could be some of the most like thriving, abundant metropolises, that could be really cool. And regenerative metropolises, because I think it'd be really great to, be growing their own food, regenerate the environments, and being able to showcase what does a regenerative civilization look like. And, if we can go from refugee camp to regenerative civilization, that's just like, I would love that. So Apostle, I think you're up next for me.
Okay. We were talking with Aryabhata and Irina, and I was commenting on the topic of that I got some seeds from the Ambassadors Academy, like a good number of seeds, and I don't like devalue them. Like I like just as an internal sensing thing, I actually value them very much. I already planted half of them. So, and I'm leaving the other half, like I can invite people, I can do a bunch of stuff with seeds that I wouldn't be able to otherwise do if either I would have to buy them or like get them in the other way. So it's kind of like a good process. Have to reward people who are actually like showing up and are actually passionate about this new system that we're creating. And here in Renaissance Explorers is kind of the same. Yeah, I'd love to see more empowerment with us as well. The other thing that we talked about, Aryabhata shared a little bit of his experience with the Kenya circle, the Kenya bioregion that he led the efforts about. And he shared how with some of the seeds that they got, they actually bought cell phones and data plans and were actually empowered to participate in this system. And also they bought tools to actually like enable them to more effectively grow their food, which they didn't have money to do that. And he also shared a statistic about how many accounts, like he said something like 5,000 or 6,000 accounts own less than 10,000 seats. And then there are 200 accounts that own more than 50,000 seats. And then there's like people from Haifa owning a lot of decentralized seats, deferred seats, sorry, a lot of deferred seats with the mechanism of the deferred seats. So that was about the current state of the system, how it looks like. And I also expressed the concern of actually like we're at this stage being so small as a community, like 200-300 citizens, that that's my personal concern and tension, that that if people from, for example, Kenya or such country are like, if we empower them, at the same time, their incentive to participate in this, because there is this good amounts of seeds like going around, they have a lot bigger incentive to participate. And so in a very much kind of like a video game way, they can raise a bunch of citizens and start like, I don't know, taking over the system. That's a little bit too far maybe, but I'm trying to make a point in saying that. So that are the topics that we talked about in our exploration group.
Wow, these are some freaking, the depth and breadth of the conversations going on here. So a few things. Actually, I'd love to just start off with this. Also, so many good points. Let's use our reactions. How is gratitude working? because I want to start upping how much, seeds we're actually putting into the gratitude pool to start giving out a much more significant amount through that gratitude tool. So I wanted to kind of touch base with all of you. Do we like that? Are we using it? Is this something that we could see becoming a part of the culture of the ecosystem, where we're really getting into gratitude? Or is it not quite designed right in order to serve its purpose of better, distributing value? So that's kind of it, is like, are we really liking this gratitude token and where it's going and we feel like it's working? If yes, give me a heart. If you feel like, actually, I think we need to reconsider this and not put a lot of value behind it, let's go with a thumbs up if you think we need to redesign it. So I just want to gauge community sentiment here. Interesting. All right, so we have some curveballs. I like it. That is, oh, I get that one. We're going to both keep it and build new tools, which was the third option that I forgot. Thanks, John. So yeah, I think the other topic that you just brought up, Apostle, definitely worth talking about is the distribution of seeds right now, where they're at. You're saying, less than 200 accounts own 10,000 or more seeds. And that's actually the problem I was pointing out, is there's a lot in the community that aren't buying seeds. So what we have is, it's kind of like the inverse, the 1%'s funding the 99%. And I can play a little thought exercise with you. Like, how do you feel about, you being the 1% funding the 99%? And then feel that way, and then think, how many seeds have I bought? So if we want this to be a sustainable ecosystem, like we're talking about a group of people who is able to buy cell phones, buy data plans, and buy shovels and tools with seeds. That's only possible because someone's on the other side of that exchange buying up their seeds for fiat. And right now, it's mostly been a handful of people, which is why only 200 accounts, because very few people have invested a lot of money into seeds. Why the majority have invested very, very little. And I think we need to actually flip that. This is going to be a community run and governed thing. Well, the community has to fund it. The community can't simultaneously stand there and say, give us value, but we don't want to give value back, because then it's going to be an off-level exchange. And then I think Seeds is going to go a very similar direction of all the other beautiful projects in the past that said, we're going to create a new currency and just throw it out there and it's going to work. And they don't work, and they didn't get that, the value to actually get behind them. So I think that's something we need to be really mindful of, how we continue to evolve this. While simultaneously being incredibly abundant, i.e. which is why I kind of brought up that gratitude idea. Like, let's give it so that people can show up, add a lot of value, help this thing thrive, and get, really fairly and beautifully rewarded for doing so. I think that's exactly what we want to create here. I'll probably leave it at that. That's really a live topic, and I don't want to be the only one saying something on it. So if there's something burning in you that you feel like you really want to add to this space right now, I'd really love to open this up and let us speak to that for a moment.
I would like to bring something that first, I think we need to look in the two phases of seeds. So there's the phase until it becomes a stable coin, and after it's a stable coin. I think the setting for as soon as we become a stable coin is well done. I think we can always improve it, make it better, and it's part of our job here. But I think the biggest challenge is the fact that now is the time that people can have upside in seeds, right? From now until go live. And now is the time that we mostly have well-educated people. In my case, I live in Brazil, so I'm facing the challenge of onboarding people, because if you're a non-English speaker, you cannot even understand how the wallet works. And I've been trying to explain to people and onboard, but it takes a lot of time, and it's harder for people to feel invited if they don't really understand what is happening in the community. So I think that is the challenge, the fact that we now have a window where we could actually reverse inequality if we had more people that would benefit from this upside. But I totally understand, right, when you bring the fact that, okay, for doing that, we need people to bring fiat money into the networks as well. So what I would see is that, I don't know if we can maybe put some efforts, and I'm happy to be part of it, on more people designing campaigns that onboard these people that we want them to benefit from this upside. So we want to get them early on into the seeds community for two reasons. One is because they will get the financial upside, and this helps to reverse inequality, but also because we want their voices on designing it from the scratch, right? And not only bringing them later on as beneficiaries or try kind of like replicate what we see in our current world. So I think this effort of designing campaigns to bring people that we see like should benefit from this upside, together with maybe inviting foundations that, as you were mentioning, that are investing in ESG and other stuff, like trying to bring them early on. And for now, how can we better, and I don't have the answer here, but how can we better give just enough incentives for people like us that come with like well-intention of building something beautiful, but not too much, right? So that, and our feeling, Max can talk more about our group, but it's like when you saw 250,000 a day that you can buy for an individual, it sounded too much in terms of potential capital gain that they could have when Seeds goes live. So that's a reflection, and I don't know if there is any working group or something that I could already join, but something like that would tackle and be specifically looking on how to reverse inequality, looking for the campaigns and how we attract maybe foundation money to help doing that.
Ooh, getting right into all the financial stuff, which is good. A quick response to that. I'm really glad you brought up the pre and post go live bit, because it doesn't matter if you can acquire 5% of the total supply of seeds right now, because post go live, we're going to keep creating more seeds, and that percentage of the total that you own is going to be going down as we're creating more seeds. So it has this thing that's going to ultimately end up redistributing all the wealth anyway, regardless of how concentrated it is in the beginning, if it ends up concentrated. Definitely, let's make our goal to widely distribute this. So also with that goal to give people more upside and more opportunity, HIFA just decided to cancel our 3.3% rise we were doing every week. So each week we're increasing the seed sale price by 3.3%, we cut that off. So now it's only going to go up in price every time we sell almost 1 million seeds, which means there's about $40 million worth of seeds to be sold from now until there's no more seeds. So that's $40 million worth that's going to be redistributed to the organizations that are within seeds. So as that money comes in, it can be brought out. So what that means is, that's where the money is going anyway. So it's not like that, investor that came in and bought 250,000 seeds, it's just going to some, shell account to be hoarded. That money's flowing right into the ecosystem to pay people's roles that are helping build this ecosystem and serve the community and serve the Renaissance. Like, we get to distribute that as citizens, right? So we still want that value flows to be pretty high. But we still want that cap at 250,000 or 250,000. So it's not too concentrated. But I think if you go lower than that, it's going to be really difficult to raise the money, because the reality is right now, we're not pushing the buy seed story. We're not going out there telling people why they should buy seeds and trying to get them to buy it. Like, we're not doing that marketing, probably for a good reason, because it just seems scammy and crummy and no one likes doing that. But then that unfortunately means that not a lot of value is coming in, which then unfortunately means there's not a lot of revenue for the roles within the seeds organizations to be able to serve seeds. So we've got to find this nice middle ground. I don't know where it is, but it's been really difficult to try to navigate that, because on one hand, you need to raise money to build this thing. But if you're raising money, that automatically looks crappy and nobody likes it because it's dirty and weird and gross. So anyway, we're right in the muck of that.
Maybe I fully understood it wrong, but isn't there the point where you can even plant also it, so you generate even more flow of seeds. So that would be, maybe I fully understood it wrong, but it would be an option if someone really wants to bring a lot of money in, that we change it to also plant money. But maybe I got that really wrong.
Yeah, there's two things with planting seeds right now. One, if you plant them before the autumn equinox, there it is. Actually, I don't think that's passing. So maybe this isn't going to be the case, because currently it looks like it's failing. So anyway, there's a proposal on the table right now that if you plant before the equinox, you can get a 30% bonus. But last I checked, it's actually failing. That's to meet a previous bonus where it had said at the beginning. Anyway, I don't need to get into that. We can talk about that later. The second thing.
But I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sorry, go on.
I'm not speaking about gaining money out of that, but more on building trust for those who want to bring more money in, so that we have a kind of mechanism where we can trust that these are not the bad investors, as you might call them, but the good foundations. That would be my, it's not about the making money part, it's more about the building trust part. But we can go separately with that, because I'm not sure if I understood it right.
Yeah, I think there's a separate thing that you're talking about, and I don't want to correct you because maybe you're onto something really cool right now. So I'd say put that into a proposal and bring it up, and I'd love to know a little bit more.
Okay.
But that's also why there's limits for visitor, resident, citizen. So we have to vouch for people. If we felt like someone was a bad actor and we didn't want them to be able to acquire too much, then we could flag that account. And if enough citizens think this account shouldn't be buying seeds, we could flag it, and they would only be able to buy a couple $100 worth of seeds, which is negligible. Or they can go to exchanges and buy it up on there. And there's
okay, I put it on paper.
But anyway, different topics. Max, your circle. And we only have 10 minutes left, so this was a really awesome exercise. I'm glad we were able to do it. But yeah, there's actually 2 left. Justin, did you go already? Your hand's still up.
Sorry.
I don't remember.
No, I haven't gone yet.
No, okay, you're up.
Oh, okay, I'm up. Okay, so we talked about Augie, Danira, and Javier, and we talked about so the concept is brought up around how maybe there's an implicit bias that takes place where, because of the continental context, it's kind of like the continental contextualization affects the value of how people perceive the value of currency. So if I think about Africa, it's a continent, but as people often think as a country as well. Like if I think about investing in Africa, I may think that like USD has just inherently more value for whatever context or project that exists there, or I may have this kind of implicit bias that that I need to give less there, invest less money there, because the continent as a whole, or countries in the continent, are impoverished. And there's something about the relationship between this kind of implicit bias around contextualizing based on continent or country with the relationship between time and money. So I noticed that like we talked about how like in our context, even with seeds, we usually make people convert to UTC or CET, which is really focused on certain countries of kind of authority or power, and really doesn't actually take time to go like, what's Zimbabwe's time like, as an example, right? Or what's the time like in Brazil, and how do we start to learn and experience that culture through our adjustments to time and understanding their values, and these kind of these really micro changes in our demeanor. That's not really the main point. I think that those are kind of the context, but I think what came beyond that was really around like recognizing that like because time and money are so tied together, and there's this inherent bias, looking at where that thing comes in. And we kind of had this sense that what happens is that at a cultural kind of a cultural paradigm, but also a social technology way. So in people's social structures, they may let me get it right. It's like if people are funding campaigns and they're thinking about the continent as the context, they may not recognize the project itself, and they may not actually be thinking about the project outside of the context that they're implicitly biased by. But if you look at, you kind of mentioned earlier, right, Keith, but if you look at the idea that like this this plot of land itself has the ability to have 3 different regenerative projects born from it. And so the investment is really based on the context of the pilot or the project of the kind of the solution space, literally the space or the land or the kind of context of the project versus the context in the sense of like maybe aspects or areas where we already have some really strong cultural and social biases around what those things are and how they operate. It may open opportunity to really be able to recognize the possibility of these kind of venturing or piloting spaces and the right amount of funding to them. But that really takes this kind of, it takes really deep change in people's mindsets, unconsciously and consciously, about how they contextualize continents or countries or places. Is people type of work that's there in order to really be able to recognize the value possible in projects and kind of give those things the time and energy and funding they need to be successful as a kind of networked movement. Does that make sense? I can try to work. Try to say it one more time. I think I missed it a little bit, but it's something, yeah. Reframe?
I'd love to add to that. I've been kicked to the back because my connection's bad, and it's brilliant what Justin just brought up, I think, in terms of, I'm thinking about the seeds and as a kind of one of the things that attracted me to it first was that it has an inherent value. And so what if the value of seeds was somewhat variable and dependent on measurements that had to do with the regenerative scope of the projects. And so looking at the variable value of seeds, because you can cast seeds over an entire field and they're only going to come up and show their genetic viability in fertile soils. And so if there was a way to mark that through the valuation of the seed or the amplification of the seed as a currency, that might be an interesting approach.
I have something that'll be a working group. It'll be really intense, but if we could pull it off, it could be incredibly valuable. And that's making a regenerative index marker. I don't know what we call this thing. But it's doing what you both just elucidated right now, is coming up with a different way of valuing a proposal so that we can give it a score based off this new valuation mechanic. So how regenerative is it in all its dimensions, like socially regenerative, ecologically regenerative, how many people and plants and animals might benefit? Like maybe that's too, still a linear way of thinking that I'm bringing it up. And maybe there's another, warmer way of going about it. I'm not sure. But I think that would be something really powerful for us as, the heart or the learning center of seeds, that we're trying to reframe how we're approaching these things to be able to provide that product to the seeds ecosystem. So that we as Renaissance explorers could actually give a rating to all the proposals. And maybe that's something that we do, and we could offer that service to seeds. And we can go through and say, yeah, we've looked at this proposal. We see it's going to have an incredible regenerative impact. We think it's worth this much value. So then seeds or the citizens of seeds have a little bit more information in which to base their proposals off of. And that could help. There's many steps we move away from decontextualizing our previous biases, because we are pseudo-anonymous. So you don't necessarily know a project's in Africa unless they say it's in Africa. So they could say we're doing a project that's going to have this benefit and never really mention what land base they're on. And even the seeds protocol itself, like it doesn't know if a region's in Africa or where it's at in the world. All it knows is it's a region, it has these members that are a part of it, and this is its contribution score. It doesn't care where it's at necessarily. I mean, the communities can definitely care where they're at, but the system doesn't. So it gets rid of those biases, from the protocol layer. But I also think there's ways that we can do it on the social layer, which I think something like this regenerative index marker, maybe that's what we can call it or whatever. So there's an idea. If someone wants to run with that thread, feel free to pick it up or just throw it in the chat right now that really lights you up and you'd like to run with that thread. And then people could reach out to you if you'd like to do that, or speak up right now if you feel inspired to do that.
I would love to be part of that.
Involved, or would you like to lead it? Bingo.
I would love to lead it. I would love it.
All right.
Yeah.
La leader.
If I can I add just a little bit? I hope that time still is okay with that. Just that there is, I posted one thing of Kath about equality and equity. What's the difference between these? Because we were talking about making them more equitable. And that does not just involve financial capital, but also, for example, knowledge capital, which we have here and provide to others. How do we make it more accessible? All of these things belong in there. How do we make these things more accessible for everyone? And for example, not just people with good internet. And so I think that that's the whole thing is just so big. That's basically the outcome of the group that I haven't shared yet, that it's quite big and really covers many things. Well, I'm sure that with what Tina would like to do, that we need to have a broader view on value and what value is and in which shapes and forms it comes into the system by people and projects and so on, so that there is, it's not just how much do they plant trees, but also how much do they teach others, for example, or how much just joy do they bring into the culture. I mean, even that is something very valuable. And so, yeah, I would also love to dive into this a little bit deeper.
One more announcement with that. That's somewhere Anna Los has been playing in too, and she's got connections with R3.0 and Michael. So Tina, I'd highly suggest connecting with Anna Los and connecting with Michael on that, because it's powerful brain trust could come together, and they've already made a lot of ground on that. Because this isn't just that's needing this. There's tons of foundations that have that same ESG imperative, and they're wanting such a a marker. So that's actually how we could start approaching ourselves to foundations, is we get to say, this is going to be your net impact. We can prove how regenerative your investment is going to be. We can tell a really beautiful story. You can let people know on the ground how it's impacting them. And all of this you get without having to donate. You can actually invest and own the change you wish to see. So I think if we could package that and make it really true and showcase how much beautiful things we can do, then yeah, that story becomes really easy. Max, you said you wanted to share for your circle. We started 3 minutes late, so we're going to go for a couple more minutes and then we'll end. Or Max, did you already share for your circle, or is that it?
No, it's okay. That's like everything's basically covered. It's beautiful.
Then I think we can, we have a couple more minutes if anyone has anything else they want to share into this. We talked about a lot of things, so I'm sure there's something that's feeling like it wants to come in here.
Can I just share for a bit? I created a Google Doc in order to track all the working groups. So if you feel like a leader of a working group, I pasted it in the chat. Just open the doc, write out the name of the title of the working group, your name as a leader, and then URL to the forum post where it's kept. Is everyone okay with that? Actually, I just decided to do that on the fly right now.
That was great.
And we could all remember to share some gratitude to Apostle. We got to keep bringing that as part of our culture. And once we have it in the wallet, then we can actually have it on during these calls. And during it, we can make it part of it. That like during the call, we could be sending gratitude as we recognize things. Anyway, we could just bring this more into our culture, so we're using it more. Any other announcements that want to come out? 1 more minute. All right, then what we can do is everyone can unmute your microphones and make some weird noises, whatever feels most appropriate to you. And we can use that as our sign off.
Thank you.
We can do a close out for everyone. There's a lot of weird. Do we want to do a closeout where everyone says one word and then we can hear from everyone? Because that'd be a nice thing. So just say a word.
Beijo.
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 Unless we want to do the word thing, are we staying around because we want to hear everyone say a word?
Ricky, I volunteer to bring us on next Tuesday to open our call.
Yes.
Love that. And once we start getting way more volunteers, we can have someone close our calls with a little bit of art inspiration to close us off, because it feels a little bit more organic. I feel like they're feeling there's something missing at the end of this. So if we could end it with some art, beautiful. Lovely humans, until next week. Bye, y'all.
See you.
Bye.
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 Bye.